When did you stop feeling things? Not sad things, everything. You'd tell me if you knew. That's the problem, you don't. That's not ingratitude. It's not boredom with the relationship. It's something quieter and much stranger, not knowing what you feel anymore, even when you can see clearly that you're supposed to be feeling something. Picture the version of this that plays out at something as small as an anniversary. Someone unwraps a gift, thoughtful, exactly what they would have loved a year ago. They say all the right words. They hug their partner, and somewhere underneath it, nothing moves, and they quietly wonder why. If someone asked how you're doing, and the honest answer is a kind of static, not sadness exactly, not numbness exactly, just a strange distance from your own life. You're not broken and you're not cold. Something in you made a decision a while ago, quietly, without asking permission. And it's worth understanding what that decision actually was. Think of it like airplane mode. When a plane hits real turbulence, switching a phone to airplane mode isn't a malfunction. It's a setting that gets used on purpose, temporarily, to stop unnecessary signals from adding to the chaos. The problem isn't the setting itself. The problem is when nobody remembers to switch it back once the flight has landed, and weeks or months later, calls are still going straight to voicemail without anyone deciding that on purpose. Emotional numbness often works the same way. When a person is carrying more than they can actually process, whether that's a caregiving season that never let up, a stretch of chronic conflict, or simply months of pressure with no real recovery in between, the mind doesn't always crack under that weight. Sometimes it does something quieter and in its own way, more impressive. It turns the signal down, not to punish anyone, to keep the system running until the storm actually passes. The trouble is, the system doesn't always get the memo once the storm is over. The pressure that justified the shutdown fades. But the shutdown itself becomes the new default setting, because nothing ever specifically told the nervous system it was safe to switch back. This is genuinely different from never learning what your feelings were called in the first place. If you grew up without anyone naming your emotions for you, the sensation is there, unlabeled, like a language you never got taught. This is something else. You know the words. You know exactly what grief feels like, what joy is supposed to feel like, because you felt them clearly before. What's missing now isn't the vocabulary. It's the signal itself. If any of this feels uncomfortably familiar, it might be worth sticking around. Because the next part is where this actually starts making sense, and subscribing means you won't miss it. Here's part of why the mind reaches for distance in the first place. Feeling everything at full volume all at once in the middle of an ongoing crisis isn't always useful. It can be the opposite of useful. A parent managing a family through a medical emergency doesn't always have room to fully feel the fear while it's happening. That fear can wait, has to wait, because someone still needs to make the next call, drive to the next appointment, hold the next conversation together. So the feeling gets set aside, not deleted, just filed somewhere out of reach, on the reasonable assumption that there will eventually be a safer moment to open that file again. The problem is that eventually doesn't always announce itself. Nobody rings a bell to say the crisis is officially over, so it's safe to feel things now. The nervous system, left without a clear signal that the danger is past, often just keeps running the protective setting indefinitely, because indefinitely running it is safer than guessing wrong. This is where the cost starts showing up quietly in places that don't look connected to any single event. A compliment lands the same way as a weather report, technically true, oddly flat. A friend shares good news and you hear yourself say the right sentence in the right tone, while some part of you watches that performance from a slight distance. Someone you love asks what you want, and there's a strange delay before any answer arrives, because the part of you that used to know that instantly has been quiet for a while. It shows up in decisions too, not just moments. Choosing where to eat, what to do this weekend, whether to take a new opportunity, all of it starts running on logic alone. Spreadsheets of pros and cons. Because the gut-level pull that used to make choices feel obvious has gone quiet along with everything else. People sometimes mistake this for indecisiveness, It's closer to trying to navigate without one of the instruments you used to rely on. And this is the detail that surprises most people. The distance rarely mutes only the painful stuff. Turning the volume down doesn't come with a dial that only affects grief or fear. It tends to flatten the whole range, so the same setting that protected someone from feeling shattered by a loss can also be the reason a sunset just looks like a sunset, or why holding someone they genuinely love doesn't quite reach them the way it used to. Most people respond to this by interrogating themselves, sitting very still and demanding an answer. What am I actually feeling right now? Am I sad? Or is this something else? That approach almost always backfires because pressuring a system that's already protecting itself with distance tends to make the distance grow, not shrink. It's like trying to fall asleep by repeatedly checking whether you've fallen asleep yet. There's a specific reason that interrogation fails, where a gentler approach succeeds. Demanding a precise emotional label asks a lot of a system that's already running on limited resources. The same way asking someone to solve a complicated equation, mid-panic rarely goes well, no matter how capable they normally are. The system isn't refusing to cooperate, it's simply being asked for something more complex than it can currently produce. And the pressure to produce it anyway just adds another layer of static on top of the static that was already there. A gentler entry point usually works better, and it doesn't start by hunting for an emotional label at all. It starts with something much smaller, noticing a physical sensation without immediately deciding what it means. Not am I sad, but simply where in my body do I notice something right now? Maybe your jaw is tight. Maybe your hands feel cold. Or your shoulders are sitting up near your ears without your permission. You're not trying to interpret it yet. You're just letting your attention land somewhere real for a few seconds. The way you check that a door is actually locked instead of just assuming. That small, boring act of noticing does something the emotional interrogation never manages. It tells the nervous system, quietly and without demanding anything back, that the present moment is survivable. Repeated enough times in small enough doses, that message starts to land. And a tightness that once meant nothing specific can slowly start to carry information again, a clue instead of just static. This isn't a demand to feel everything at once, and it wouldn't work even if it were. The distance was built for a reason over time, and it isn't going to dissolve because a video told it to. What actually helps is smaller and much more patient than that, proving, one unremarkable moment at a time, that coming a little closer to your own experience isn't the emergency it once was. If this kind of disconnection is constant, distressing, or making it hard to function, that's worth bringing to a therapist, not because something is broken about you, but because you deserve support figuring out what your system has been protecting you from. You didn't go numb because you stopped caring. Some part of you turned the signal down, because at some point the volume genuinely was too much to carry. And maybe the return doesn't start with forcing the feeling back all at once. Maybe it starts with something much smaller, a hand resting on the wall you built and a quiet acknowledgement that you know exactly why it's there.